our next guest, Benjamin Hochman. Ben is a Clayton native and a sports columnist for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Ben studied journalism at Mizzou and then worked at the New Orleans Times-Picayune and the Denver Post before coming to the St. Louis Post. He and his wife, Angela LaRocca Hochman, are the proud parents of a baby daughter. Ben is no stranger to the St. Louis Jewish community. He has hosted several Jewish Book Festival sports nights and in fact has brought one of his previous books to the JBF. Now he has written a fourth book to be published next April, the story of the 2011 St. Louis Cardinals, which won the World Series. And while he's earned some writing honors over the years, he feels his greatest accomplishment is that they named a pastrami sandwich after him at Pratzel's Delicatessen. Ben, thanks for honoring us again by being here today to speak to members of the St. Louis Jewish community. Ben, take it away.
Myron, thank you so much. Good to see your face. I really appreciate those kind words. And hello, everybody. Hello, St. Louis. Hello, people that aren't in St. Louis. I'm honored to be here. I always enjoy speaking to members of the Jewish community and, well, any community really, but I like the Jewish community because it's my community. And so today I thought we could talk about the St. Louis Cardinals, how they did, how they could do, and then I'll take some questions really about anything with the Cardinals, really about anything. Any question, just throw it my way, and I'll happily answer it. But today I wanted to jump in to the Cardinals. Raise your hand if you can, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being diehard fan, 1 being, if you're more than a 5 as a Cardinal fan, let's see your hand. Okay, all right, yeah. I like this, yeah. There's just something about the Cardinals. They're just part of our community. I always say it's like an heirloom passed down from families in St. Louis, is the love of the Cardinals. And I myself was raised in Clayton. My mother, Josette, my father, Jer, and they were teachers. And I joke that they taught me baseball better than anything. Definitely better than science and math, I'll tell you that. But yeah, but I love baseball. I love storytelling about baseball. And I feel that there's almost 2 aspects to baseball. And maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but for one side of baseball, we've got the numbers and the stats and the analytics. And sometimes that can be welcoming, sometimes that can be overwhelming. But numbers and statistics are part of baseball. And then on the other side, we have the history, the beauty of baseball, the colors of baseball, the green, the red, if you will, the brown, of the gloves and the bats. And I try my best to bring those 2 together with my writing and my reporting. And hopefully that will, that comes out in my writing. So right away, here's another question, and no problem if you don't know the answer, but raise your hand if you do know what the statistic OPS means.
That's right.
OPS.
Participants.
Yeah. So this is good. I feel like I'm gonna teach a little bit today. So when we were growing up, what mattered most? Home runs, batting average, RBIs. Those were the stats, and they still are the stats. Don't get me wrong. I still respect home runs, RBIs, and batting average. But there's this newer stat called OPS, and this is the one that fuels baseball these days. So you're like, Benjamin, what is OPS? And I'll tell you right after this commercial break. No, I'm just kidding. There's no commercial. No commercial. OPS, on base percentage plus slugging percentage. Basically, the statistic is how often do you get on base and how well do you slug the baseball, doubles, triples, and homers. So that kind of makes sense, right? You want to get on base and you want to slug. Put it together, OPS. The St. Louis Cardinals last season had a 694 OPS. Where did that rank in Major League Baseball? 26th. They were the 26th best, or if you will, the 5th worst team when it comes to offense in baseball. Their OPS was, and this is good because I have trouble writing this in print, but I can do it here. Their OPS was, it was terrible. It was just terrible. But they still made the playoffs, which was really, really fascinating. So what we have right now, if you're a Cardinals fan or if you're a Cardinals executive, is kind of this quandary. The St. Louis Cardinals ain't bad. They made the playoffs in 2019. They made the playoffs in 2020. But they did not go to the World Series. And it's pretty clear that if they're going to do better in 2021 and beyond, they have to do better offensively. They have to get on base more. They have to slug more. Thus, they have to have more OPS. So where do you get more OPS? That's the big question. Do you get it from within the players on your team, or do you go out and purchase it in free agency, or do you try to trade for it? The Cardinals' best OPS guy, you probably know, and if you don't, is Paul Goldschmidt, the first baseman, Paul Goldschmidt, one of the better hitters in the National League. He led the Cardinals with OPS. Real quick, an 800 OPS is good. A 900 OPS is amazing. Well, Paul DeYoung, not Paul Goldschmidt, but Paul DeYoung at shortstop, he was supposed to be good at OPS. They thought he'd be around the 800 mark. He was at 671. So that's kind of an example of a player that they want to do better next season. Fingers crossed, right? So anyway, here's a couple names I want to throw at you. A couple, I do a little research. I talked to some people with the Cardinals, and maybe you've seen these names in the Post-Dispatch. But the idea is, who can the Cardinals get to make the team better? And the reality is, Babe Ruth's not walking through this door. Sandy Koufax, Hank Greenberg's not walking through this door. They're going to have to get a player at a reasonable price. And that's the thing that's frustrating to some fans. Because of the pandemic, because the St. Louis Cardinals didn't make any money off ticket sales last year, they are having some trouble financially. That's the reality of the business. So much so that Colton Wong, who's a Gold Glove winner, a second baseman, kind of a guy you want to build around, is not coming back. Raise your hand if you liked Colton Wong. If you like some of his play. Yeah, I do too. I like Colton Wong. I love watching Colton Wong. He's a Gold Glover. He's flamboyant. He's a team first guy. He hustles. He leads off. He's so much fun. But the problem is he makes $12 million. Now that wouldn't have been a problem in 2019 or 18 or 17. But in 2020 and 2021, $12 million is a lot to pay for a guy. And they had to make a decision. Do they give him the $12 million or do they let him go? And they looked at their roster and said, you know what? Colton Wong, for all of his fielding, for all of his good fielding, his OPS, his offense wasn't that good last season. We've got another guy, Tommy Edman, who has a similar OPS. He's definitely not as good as fielder as Colton Wong, but here's the difference. Colton Wong makes $12,500,000. Tommy Edman makes $500,000. So they're like, wow, I hate to do this, Colton, but it's 2020. We're going to have to let you go because someone makes $12 million less than you do and can do what we think is comparable offense. It's still kind of frustrating, though. You lose a guy you like. We all raised our hand. We like Colton Wong. So they lost some offense there. So where can they get some offense? And that's the big question. I get texts and calls all day. Who are the Cardinals going to get? What's going to happen to their offense? Again, I would love for 1940 Hank Greenberg to show up and be in the middle of the Cardinals lineup. That would be good. But the reality is they're going to have to get a guy that maybe you don't know about yet. But I'm going to throw some names at you. David Dahl, D-A-H-L. David Dahl played for the Colorado Rockies. He was an all-star in the 2019 season. So you're like, oh my God, he's available? Let's get David Dahl. He was an all-star in 2019. Well, he was, again, to use that word, in 2020. He was not very good in 2020, and he had injury issues. But David Dahl is a left-handed hitter. David Dahl is still a young ball player at 26. And David Dahl is affordable. He's only probably around $3 million. As we know, they probably don't want to pay the $12 million for Colton, or they didn't, but can they get David Dahl for $3 million? The idea is this. You want to maximize OPS at every position. You got 9 positions on the field or in your batting order. You want to get the most offense out of each guy. This is me batting. By the way, I played baseball at Clayton High School, and you see my name is Ben, and you know the Mendoza line? That's the famous line. Susan Blake's nodding her head. The Mendoza line is for a batting average of 200. If you're under that, you're under the Mendoza line. And if you don't know, 200 is terrible. 300 is really good, but 200 is terrible. And this guy, Mario Mendoza, he had a couple years where he batted 197, 199. So they joked that the 200 was the Mendoza line. And I had a lot of smart teammates at Clayton High School, went to good colleges and all that, but I'm just perplexed that none of them came up with the nickname for me as the Mendoza line, because I thought that would be a perfect nickname for me as a terrible hitter. I would have given myself the nickname if it was the shoe on the other foot, or the baseball cleat on the other foot, if you will. Anyway, back to David Dahl, D-A-H-L. He is available right now, and he's a left-handed hitter. And the idea is if the Cardinals get him, they can platoon him with another player. Again, we talk about maximizing OPS, getting the most offense out of each player. Well, Harrison Bader hits he hits left-handed pitchers very well. He hits lefties well. He can't hit a righty. I would suggest that anybody here who's right-handed could probably get Harrison Bader out. Maybe at least 8 out of 10 times. Harrison, but then you flip it, right? David Dahl is really good against right-handed pitchers, but he's not good against lefties. So it doesn't take a genius to figure this out. Why don't you have Dahl face the righties and Bader face the lefties? Then you've maximized your offense in that position. And that's something that the Cardinals right now, John Mozeliak, Michael Gersh, the front office, they're considering this right now. This could be an upgrade there. There's a couple other players. Eddie Rosario from the Minnesota Twins is available. He led the Twins in RBIs the past 2 seasons. And another name, and I'm going to say this, and I can't promise this. I think this guy is Jewish. Jock Peterson of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I believe I've read that before. Clearly, if he arrives to the Cardinals, I will meet him and I will test it by going up to him and say shalom and just see what he does. And but yeah, if they get Jock Peterson, that would be a great addition to the Cardinals too. Similarly, he's a good ball player against just right-handed pitchers. He's a lefty, he hits righties really well, but God forbid you throw him against the other side, he's not going to do well. So Jock Peterson, and now he has a championship pedigree. He played for the Los Angeles Dodgers, won the World Series this past season. So he's another guy that the Cardinals will look at. But you're probably thinking, or even heading into today's talk, you're probably wondering, if we're talking about the Cardinals in 2021, there's 2 Cardinals I want to know if they're going to be on the Cardinals. Adam Wainwright, Yadier Molina. Those are the guys we love. In fact, actually, I got Wainwright right here. He's been staring at me the whole time. Where's Wainwright? So, Adam, are you going to sign with the Cardinals? Can't tell you, man. All right. Oh, by the way, that makes me wonder. You know who's probably? I just think of. I can't believe I'm about to do off the cuff stand up comedy here, but I've been thinking about ventriloquists during the pandemic age. I feel like some of the luster is gone when the ventriloquist is wearing a mask. So hopefully for the ventriloquists of St. Louis, they're persevering. All right. Anyway, back to some serious talk. Adam Wainwright, will he be back with the St. Louis Cardinals? We saw Colton Wong, a beloved player, a Gold Glove winning player, let go because of financial reasons. Well, what does that mean for Adam Wainwright? I think they're going to bring him back, and here's why. He's cool with just doing a 1-year contract. And again, I'm not trying to bog you down too much with numbers and money, but it's part of the game. And the idea is we love Wainwright. We love his grittiness. We love his beautiful curveball. And he's even doing really well at 8. I mean, he's in baseball years. He was 39 years old last year. He was the oldest player in the National League, and he pitched really well. So why not bring him back? He only wants a 1-year deal. You can probably get him at an affordable price. And we see that he's very resilient. So there's a lot to like about it. Oh, and by the way, he wants to be back. Adam Wainwright wants to be part of the Cardinals. He's a mentor to a lot of the young pitchers. You talk to Jack Flaherty or Dakota Hudson, they will gush about Adam Wainwright as a leader, as kind of a Pied Piper, if you will. He's very important. It's almost like you're paying for a pitcher and you get a coach out of the deal too with Adam Wainwright. So here's hoping that they bring him back for numerous reasons. I selfishly hope they bring him back because as a journalist, to us, we don't care about OPS. To us, journalists, our OPS is good quotes from a player. So, and to me, Adam Wainwright gives the best quotes for our articles for the Post-Dispatch. He's so thoughtful. He's funny. So, yeah, here's hoping that he comes back, if only just to, make our articles a little better and to also to entertain the fans and the readers of the Post-Dispatch. Okay, what about Yadier Molina? Okay. I'm not as confident. I'm hopeful, but I'm not as confident because he wants a 2-year deal. And he's an older ball player too. And he wants 2 years. Do they want to commit money in a time where they don't have much money? Do they want to commit money to an older catcher for 2 years? They're probably confident with him next year. But are they confident for him the year after? They're going to have to weigh their options. They have another catcher, Andrew Knizner. And that's confusing because his last name is spelled Knizner, but it's pronounced Knizner. And right now, everyone calls him Knizner because we don't know who he is. Who is this guy? But maybe if he gets to start, we'll know how to pronounce his name. He's good. He's young. Is he Yadier Molina? No. But he's probably the catcher of the future. So the Cardinals have to make a decision here. Again, similar to Wainwright, when you're paying money for Yadier Molina, you're not just paying for hits. You're not just paying for OPS. You're not just paying for, if you will, defense. He's won a bunch of Gold Gloves. You're paying for leadership. You're paying for coachness, if you will. I mentioned that Wainwright's almost like an extra coach. Well, clearly Yadier Molina is a guide to all of these pitchers and young players for the St. Louis Cardinals. They don't give out a captain, but they call him, there's a C on his jersey, but he is the unofficial captain of the St. Louis Cardinals. And the players would love to have him back. So here's hoping that they bring Yadier back. Will they though? I can't sit here and promise it because he wants 2 years. And that's the thing is like, you would think like Yadier, he's made him all this money. He's won a couple World Series. You'd think he'd just be like, give me the minimum. I'll play for the Cardinals. I love the Cardinals. But these are proud men, and these are working people, and they want to be given the money that they feel is their worth. And so is sports, and so is the possibility that Yadier Molina could be wearing another uniform this coming season. So we'll have to follow that storyline. I would suggest reading the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. There might be some news in there in the coming days and weeks on Yadier Molina. Here's an optimistic piece about next season. Hey, my man, John. John's got it right there. Thank you, John Reichman. I appreciate that. And I like your hoodie or your sweater. So you're wearing, that's 2011, right? The 2011 World Series. I would suggest that in April or May, keep an eye out for the book 11 in 11 by Ben Hochman. I heard it's going to be good. It's a book about the 2011 World Series, David Freese, and I interviewed a lot of fans for it too. I'm really proud of what we put together here, and that'll be a fun new book out in the spring, hopefully to coincide with opening day. But here's a player I want to talk about that I have not mentioned yet, and if you don't know him, you should know him. Dylan Carlson. All right, let's do the hand raise thing. Who's heard of Dylan Carlson? Okay, a lot of people have. A few haven't. But Dylan Carlson he's the future. Hopefully he can be the present, as in 2021. But he's a young ball player, age 21, and he's a switch hitter, and he's just got this beautiful swing and this very professional, older mental state, this older demeanor. I've interviewed him a lot. I even got to sit next to him at winter warm-up on the stage when all the fans I just wanted to watch him interact with the fans. I sat with him for an hour. It was really cool just watching Dylan Carlson meet the Cardinals fans, and he was so humble, and he would ask them about their favorite players and things like that. There's so much to like about this guy, and I think he has the potential to be a 900 OPS guy. That's really good if you recall. 800's like thumbs up. 900 is all-star. 900 is Paul Goldschmidt. And 1,000 or 1.00 is Albert Pujols from the 2000. That's how good Albert Pujols was. But I'm really excited about Dylan Carlson. He'll play in left field. He also has a really good glove. He's a very talented defensive player. So that's a name you should definitely keep on your radar, Dylan Carlson for the St. Louis Cardinals. I got some notes here, and another guy I want to point out is Miles Mikolas. Do you remember Miles Mikolas? It's funny how 1 year a guy could be out and you almost forget about him. Miles Mikolas, best mustache in the National League. He did not play last year with the elbow injury, elbow surgery, but he should be back next year. I'm excited. I think the Cardinals are going to have a very formidable rotation and bullpen. And again, that's how they made the playoffs the past 2 years. They had below average offense, as we've discussed on this Zoom so far, but they've had fantastic starting pitching and even better statistically relief pitching. And Miles Mikolas was a key part of it, and I think he's going to be a key part of it this year. One of his best traits, it sounds simple, but it's throwing strikes. He throws some of the fewest amount of balls in the National League. What does that mean? Fewest amount of walks. And walks are as good as hits. You're just putting the other team on base for free. And the other thing about walks, and it's funny, I didn't really think about this when I was younger. We always think about it from the getting a guy on base standpoint. Oh, if I allow a walk, man, now I've got a guy on first base. But what else have I done? I've just wasted at minimum 4 pitches, and possibly even more if it went to a full count or there are foul balls. What I'm getting at is I might have pitched 10 pitches. And what happened? I let the guy on base without him getting a hit. So now I'm 10 more pitches towards my maximum amount. And when I was growing up, and maybe when you were too, the idea of a pitch count, it didn't exist. Guys would just go. Bob Gibson, he didn't care. Just give him the baseball. He'll throw 9 innings. He'll throw 18 innings. Just give him the ball. But these days, for whatever reason, they pay more attention to the amount of pitches a guy throws. Well, if a guy walks a bunch of guys, he's going to get towards his pitch count closer or sooner. And that means he's pulled from the game sooner. And that means frustration for everybody involved. So that's why I like Miles Michaelis. And that's why I think he's going to have a good year in 2021 because of his accuracy. Another pitcher in the rotation, KK Kim, the Korean pitcher. I like him just because he loves being a part of the Cardinals. We're talking about a guy who is 37 years old and a hero over in Korea. One of the all-star pitchers over there. He won a championship, accomplished it all. He was kind of like an Adam Wainwright of Korea, but he wanted to challenge himself and come to the United States and see if he could pitch in the major leagues. Who gave him the opportunity? The St. Louis Cardinals. They took a risk on him. They gave him a contract. He flew over here and he did really well for the Cardinals. And he speaks about his pride of wearing the birds on the bat, on his jersey. It's pretty cool. He had a 1.62 ERA last year. And again, we know they only had 60 games. Actually, the Cardinals only had 58, but it was a smaller sample size. But hey, he had the ERA 1.62. That's really, really impressive. And the other thing is, talk about perseverance. The St. Louis Cardinals made the playoffs last year, and we can poo-poo the offense. We can say the offense wasn't good, but we have to talk about the Cardinals' perseverance. They had numerous guys get COVID. They had numerous injuries too. And with KK Kim, the Korean pitcher, he persevered just simply being away from his family. He flew to the United States in January of 2020, leaving his wife and his 2 children in Korea. He flew to the United States to go to spring training in Florida. The idea was that they would come over in April for opening day and for the beginning of the season. Well, we know what happened. A pandemic hit. Couldn't do any international travel. Suddenly, Kim is alone in St. Louis, Missouri with his interpreter and not his family. Imagine that. Imagine just being away from your family for months and months and months. He didn't see his family throughout the entire season. He had to wait for the season to begin in June and July. And then he pitched. He had this cool opportunity to pitch in the major leagues, and he wasn't with his family when he did it. And it's not like you and I can Zoom or FaceTime somebody in real time. Well, what's the time difference for Korea? So he's got to time it. I keep saying the word time, but he's got to time it so he's talking at nighttime to his kids in the morning. It's just a lot that goes into the emotional aspect of being a ball player. It takes its toll. So for KK Kim to pitch really well for the Cardinals was really, really an admirable thing. And it'll be fun to see how he does next season. And if there are fans allowed in the ballpark, I'm sure the Cardinal fans will graciously and loudly welcome Kim and his family back to St. Louis and back to Busch Stadium in 2021. I could keep going, but I would love to open this up for questions. If anybody has any, Judith, if you don't mind kind of driving the ship here, being the captain, if you will.
Absolutely. John Reichman, you have a question right now? You unmute yourself. John, you got to unmute.
Judy, yes, I got really
Okay.
2 questions.
Oh, hey, Sheldon, could we
Yes.
go to John first and then to you?
It's okay with me.
Yeah,
I've got 2 questions
You're,
too.
you're on deck, Sheldon. Get ready.
My,
All right. You be ready for me.
Yeah.
Can you handle
John.
me?
What's up,
I'm
John?
a traditionalist, Ben, and I thought the end of the world was coming when they allowed to have a designated hitter this year. I really was upset about that, but I think really it's on the horizon. But really, what has recently really upset me, and I think probably a lot of fans, is what's happened with the Fox Midwest Network, and we now have gambling on baseball. I think that is a terrible thing for our national pastime and for our kids And I just am totally disappointed. And big business, I don't know what we're going to do about it, but I sure would like to see some kind of editorial or more than one about that.
Yeah, coincidentally, I wrote an editorial about that very issue last week. Maybe I'll do some more, like you said, because it's a topic that I'm passionate about as well, John. But let's get to the designated hitter, though. Before that, it's funny, like the designated hitter might as well be 4 letters because it's like a bad word in St. Louis. You say the word designated hitter, oh my God. And the reality is, we talk about baseball being an heirloom and passed down to generations, shared with generations in our town. Part of that is the National League game. The idea of having the pitcher hit, and then you can sub him out and do a double switch, and the strategy aspect. We love the strategy of possibly having the pitcher bunt, move the guy over, sacrificing himself. There's a lot of beauty to that. The reality is, and I mean, everything we say, like every minute of this conversation, each minute is tied back to the same theme: money. Everything about this is business, business, business of baseball. Whether it's bringing a player back, signing a new player, designated hitter, gambling, or whatever we talk about, it's all about money. And offense, they love offense. Fans love offense. So basically, Major League Baseball says, wait a second, we're going to have pitchers bat. Pitchers do not practice batting. Pitchers are not good batters. Why don't we have the designated hitter where we have in their place a professional batter who has definitely a higher OPS and is going to drive in more runs, create more offense? Does that make us happy in St. Louis? No. Does it make them happy in New York at Major League Baseball offices? Because that means there might be more runs per game in every game. Yes, of course. So it's quite possible that the DH is here to stay. And I don't know if Gerald Bamberger is covering his face because he just has an itch, or if but to me, that was a symbol of all of us when you went, because it's true. That's us with the designated hitter right now. So you mentioned something, John, in regards to gambling. I'll quickly explain it to everybody because some people might not know what's going on. So the phrase betting in baseball, betting on baseball, we talk about a bad word, bad words. Those are bad words. Betting on baseball, that's Shoeless Joe Jackson. That's Pete Rose. That's bad stuff. You're not supposed to do that. And clearly, it's part of our history with baseball. But now betting on baseball is part of baseball. What John was referring to, and Dan Caesar from the Post-Dispatch has written some very in-depth articles, and I wrote an editorial about it, a column just this past week, is Fox Sports Midwest, the TV station, and all the other TV stations owned by Sinclair are going to now have interactive betting, interactive gambling for fans during the games. So the idea is you got your phone in your hand, you're watching the game. A Goldschmidt comes up in the third inning, and it'll probably say something on the screen. Does Goldschmidt drive in the runner on third here? And there'll be odds, and you can lift, gamble your life savings away on this Paul Goldschmidt at bat. And I kind of say that in like a silly, fun way, but like the reality is like I'm nervous. Gambling is an addictive thing. It is a scary thing. Many people on this call probably know people who have been addicted to gambling and they've seen their lives crumble because of it. Well, now gambling is being encouraged by the broadcast, and it's put in on our fingertips and in real time. And then you throw in the kids aspect of it. Watching a ball game, and you might have read my words here in the newspaper. Watching a ball game is almost a sacred thing, and the ball game is kind of like a safe space. You can watch with your family, and it's you connecting with baseball, the Cardinals, with the city, and the players. Well, now it's this like kind of murky, almost tainted experience where, if where you can get lured into gambling during the game. And yeah, the reality is they're going to make a lot of money from it, and a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun with it. And there are many people that will be responsible, and it's going to enhance their viewership. And we hear a lot about how the young generation uses their phones, they play video games, they're all about interactive stuff. So of course, why wouldn't they want to do this with the gambling? But I'm just worried that because of this, there's going to be new gamblers, new people that bet, and because of that, there's going to be new losers, new people that don't win. And that's what I fear, that somebody right now who doesn't have a gambling problem might, starting in 2021, 2022, et cetera. So that's what's going on there. Sheldon, you're up, buddy.
Okay, are you ready? I'm going to throw you a fastball,
Okay.
then a curveball. Okay, the fastball is, when do we get rid of Carpenter? Is he over the hill? When are the Cardinals going to acknowledge that he's compromised ball player?
That's a great question.
Curveball is, where do you go with Martinez?
Yeah, these are hot topics. Great questions. I appreciate it. The first one, Matt Carpenter. He was a fan favorite for many years. Had a great beard. Got on base a bunch. Heck, just 2 years ago, I believe he finished 9th in the MVP voting. He was among the top hitters in the National League. But
that was then.
What's that, bud?
That was then.
That was then. No, you're right. No, exactly. Exactly. And what they did was they paid for the back of his baseball card. They gave him money for something he had already accomplished, thinking that he could keep doing it. And Matt Carpenter has turned into a shell of himself. He's dealt with injuries. Hey, Myron.
Yeah, a couple years ago when he had that great season, I told one of our colleagues back then they should trade him. That he had the great season, and he's not going to do that again. The response was, "This is the best leadoff hitter in baseball." Okay. Well, he isn't a leadoff batter anymore. Right away, they put him farther back in the batting order, and he hasn't done anything since.
Yeah, you and Sheldon are both capturing the quandary that the Cardinals are in. The idea of they thought he would be able to reproduce what he did, but he's an older ball player to begin with. He hasn't. So now he's got this huge contract, and he's at third base for the Cardinals. No team is going to want to trade for him. Or I don't say no team. Few teams would want him because he makes so much money. Again, it all comes back to this money thing. If he didn't make any money, they wouldn't play him. But because they're paying him all this money, they're going to see it through. So to answer your question, Sheldon, as of now, I believe they're going to start with him at either third base or the designated hitter, if there is a designated hitter, and there's probably going to be a designated hitter in the National League. So I think they give him the benefit of the doubt. Oh, he's refreshed, he's rejuvenated, we'll do the stories from Jupiter, Florida. He's worked on his swing and he's blah, 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 blah. And then when he starts having an OPS in the 600-700s, that's when they're going to have to admit that he shouldn't be in the lineup. The other player you ask, but the other thing I'll say is the other question is, if not him, then who? We always get excited about, oh, get this guy out of here, he stinks. All right, but who goes in there? Who do you pay? How do you make this work? And yes, the Cardinals have one of the top third base prospects in the National League in Nolan Gorman. But Nolan Gorman is, I believe, 20 or 21 years old. He's a couple, if not a few years away from the majors. They got to fill that gap if they get rid of Carpenter. Does that mean moving Tommy Edman from second base, where he's replacing Colton Wong, over to third? I don't know. A lot of questions to be answered, and the Cardinals will have to make those decisions. Carlos Martinez, he's one of the most frustrating athletes in this generation in St. Louis sports. Carlos Martinez, clearly one of the more talented pitchers the Cardinals have had. He's been an all-star numerous times. I think a 2-time all-star. So he wasn't like this flash in the pan. He was a legit all-star pitcher. But we've seen what's happened with him in recent years, whether it's his mental focus or lack thereof. Clearly, the team has talked about how he did not recover well from injuries. He didn't put in the work, they said, that needed to be done to prepare his shoulder to pitch 200 innings in the major leagues. And then last year, he got COVID along with other Cardinals too, and that zapped his season or much of his season. Now they don't know what to do with him. They would love to trade him. They're not pleased with his production, and they don't think he's worth the money they're giving him. But again, it comes back to what value can they get back for him? And maybe they're just going to, I hate to say stash him in the bullpen, and maybe he can give them a good, I don't know. I don't think he's the closer anymore. I think Jordan Hicks, who's returning from elbow surgery, I think he'll be the closer in 2021. But I think you stash Carlos Martinez in the bullpen for now. Hopefully you want to maximize what you can get out of a guy. And unfortunately, they're not going to maximize his talent, but they'll probably have to maximize at least with what they have with what's left of Carlos Martinez, which is a shell of himself. Judy,
Stanford has his hand up. So
There we go. Thank you. Hey, great discussion there, Ben. And I have to tell you, my children have had your mom and dad both at Parkway, and they've had them at Sunday school. So,
that's awesome.
They're very good. They're very good parents. I want to mention, first
I
of all,
agree.
I think John had a great question there with gambling. I never even thought about that, but that's great that you brought that to our attention. On third base, I'm really, I don't want this to be too complicated here. So if we could get a third baseman in free agency to get Carpenter out of the lineup, I think that would be who's available at third base that would be reasonable. And then secondly, how long the leash do you think Mozeliak has with the Cardinals? Because I don't think he's really done a great job. He's given contracts out too soon. Here we got rid of Colton Wong. I mean, if you wanted to get rid of him, why don't you trade him while you could get something for him? I don't. He's a nice guy, but lately I don't think he's really produced the kind of teams that we want.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump. Thanks for the kind words about the family, and nice to talk with you, Sanford. And yeah, I mean, right away at third base, there's not Ken Boyer is not waiting out
He's
there.
my favorite.
That'd be nice. 1964.
That's another
Ken
question.
Boyer.
Will he ever get into the Hall of Fame?
I don't think so. I don't think Ken Boyer ever makes the Hall of Fame. That's not to knock his accomplishments, but I just think he's one of those guys that would clearly have a plaque in the Hall of Very Good, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
As for third base, there's not a sparkling name available out there. Now, one of the best third basemen alive, Nolan Arenado, is on the Colorado Rockies, and they would look to trade Nolan Arenado. So, of course, some people go get him, he's available. Nolan Arenado makes $30 million a year. Again, the Cardinals made $0 on from revenue last year on ticket sales. Reports are that teams have lost literally hundreds of millions of dollars. Do they have the ability to just go out and get a guy that is going to be paid $30 million a year for multiple years? The answer is probably no, unfortunately. Again, the pandemic, it affects everything from small aspects of the world, wearing a mask to schnooks, to huge aspects from a baseball business standpoint, and whether or not you pay a great ball player to play for your team. So I don't know. I don't know if they have the answer yet for who replaces Matt Carpenter at third base, unfortunately.
Can I ask another question? What was the deal with television revenue last year when they didn't play games? Did the teams get paid at all in their television revenue?
Well, they got some, but if you recall, they only had 60 games as opposed to 162.
So they didn't get paid at all for the games that they missed. It's not a season type contract. It's almost a per game.
I believe I don't have the stuff in front of me, unfortunately, so I don't know if I can answer that accurately. I believe there was some profits made off it, but because they only had a certain amount of the season, I mean, you think it's as simple as, you get money per advertisement. Well, if you get 162 advertisements compared to 60 advertisements, there's a difference in the money there. So, yeah, it's a frustrating time because, again, you just want your favorite team to go out and get the best player. Why not, right? But it's clearly that's not how it's going to work, which leads into your other question, Sanford, about John Mozeliak. And it's such an interesting topic because let's pretend right now we're in Seattle. So does anybody have I guess we need umbrellas and seafood. But let's pretend we're in Seattle right now and we're all fans of the Seattle Mariners and who are always average, always just average. Well, let's say I told you that your favorite team, the Seattle Mariners, made the playoffs in 2019 and in 2020. You'd be like, all right, Mariners, okay, making the playoffs 2 years in a row. That's what I'm talking about, Mariners baseball. Well, the reality is the St. Louis Cardinals, your team, made the playoffs the last 2 years. But no one's doing the dumb Ben Hochman dance for that. Everyone is frustrated about the Cardinals. So I just bring that up just for some perspective that we have such high expectations in St. Louis that doing something as simple as doing something like making the playoffs isn't lauded as much as it used to be. A big issue of that is the way they made the playoffs. And to bring us back full circle, they made the playoffs with bad hitting. The pitching got them in there. The Cardinals had, as we said, the 26th best OPS in baseball last year, yet they made the playoffs. And like Sanford said, and Sheldon and other people pointed out, some of these contracts are pretty bad. Matt Carpenter, we all know Brett Cecil, the relief pitcher, that was a tough one. Even Dexter Fowler, who had an okay year last year, you could definitely argue that he has not performed up to the amount of money that they've paid him. So there's a lot of frustration, but the question is, like, you're still making the playoffs, right? And Bill DeWitt Jr., the chairman of the St. Louis Cardinals, his goal is to be competitive every year, competitive for the playoffs. So that's what I'm getting at is I can't imagine him walking into Mozeliak's office and saying, you're fired. And Mozeliak goes, but wait, don't you want to be competitive every year? He's like, well, yeah. Well, didn't we make the playoffs the last 2 years? Yeah. Well, isn't that the definition of being competitive? Why are you firing me? So I guess, and there's a loyalty aspect. I mean, Mozeliak he started being the general manager in 2007. I mean, they made the playoffs in 2009, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2019, and 2020. The Seattle dude can't say that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, I see.
And
So,
this Sheldon, I'd like to come back at you at that point.
yeah.
The question is twofold for me. For those of us who played baseball as kids, you can watch the team and it's just a mediocre team, even if it did make the playoffs. They weren't an outstanding team. They just squeaked by.
Yeah.
Many, I guess, flaws on that team. So the question is just getting into the playoffs, is that a reasonable goal for management? And you just look at the team and you say there's so many weak players on that team. Where are they going to go with them?
Right.
It just seems to be a matter of they've got the golden goose. It's laying all these golden eggs, and there's no hunger in top management to build a winner.
I mean, great points. Great point.
Ballpark Village is a gold mine.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say in regards to the hunger aspect is, like, I speak to these guys on the phone occasionally, and, like, I mean, these are human beings who are passionate about their work. Like, I'll simply say it's not like Mozeliak's just sipping on tasty drinks and just playing on his phone all day. Like, he has the hunger to win. He has a hunger to win. Does he have the right minds and colleagues in the front office and forward thinking with the advanced stats to pull it off? I can't fully endorse that. But I just want to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt that, like, they're working pretty hard. They care a lot. I mean, I just wrote this book, right? I just wrote the book about the 2011 Cardinals, and I was getting all sentimental with Mozeliak, like, oh, where do you keep your ring? And do you ever just sit back and think about just how special that season was? And he talked about, like, he's like, in this profession, I cannot afford, and he was kind of using it as almost a metaphor. He's like, I can't afford to just sit back and relax and enjoy things. He's like, people ask me all the time about people that work for me. They're like, should I take a vacation? And he's always like, yeah, take a vacation. You need it for your personal balance, for your mind. But Mozeliak himself doesn't take vacations. He's like, I can't afford to do this. So that's kind of his mentality, is he's not satisfied. But again, he's also saying that to a reporter who knows, he knows I'm probably going to then, talk to the Myron Holtzman's friends on a Zoom and then share that with them. So I don't know.
What does Grichuk do?
Well, that's another aspect of this whole thing is looking at ball players who they got rid of, who have gone to other teams. It's the reality is some guys you're going to miss on some guys, but other guys you're glad they didn't lock in with him. Grichuk is a pretty good slugger for Toronto right now. Randy Arozarena, of course, like they admitted, the Cardinals had a bunch of young outfielders that didn't make a lot of money and they thought had a lot of potential. And they said, well, we only have 3 outfield spots. We can't keep all of them. So we're going to keep Bader and Lane Thomas and Tyler O'Neill. And we're going to get another guy, give away another guy who we think is comparable. We're going to trade him and get a young pitcher. So they traded Randy Arozarena along with Jose Martinez to the Tampa Bay Rays. Randy Arozarena, I mean, it was incredible last season. It was the championship series MVP, played in the World Series, darling of baseball, Randy Arozarena. And so we all sit here and say, oh, the Cardinals lost that trade. The Cardinals lost that trade. We can't say that yet because they got a player in return named Matthew Liberatore, who is, I believe, 21 years old. I wrote about him during spring training. I've interviewed him a lot. He's a top left-handed pitcher in the minor leagues. We can't, yes, of course, Mozeliak admitted they got rid of the wrong guy. If Arozarena is a star like we're seeing, a guy who's going to have a 950 OPS, then yeah, they made a mistake. They should have kept him and gotten rid of O'Neill or something like that. But we can also say that the trade can't be fully analyzed until Matthew Liberatore cracks the major league rotation and we see if he's awesome or not. And they think he's going to be awesome. They think he's going to be a stud starting pitcher in the major leagues. So there's that aspect of it too.
Ben, that's kind of what I want to piggyback on a little bit. Talking about Cardinals officials, Mozeliak, et cetera, and their talent evaluation. It seems to me like their talent evaluation, especially on everyday players, has slipped a lot since Luhnow and maybe even Jocketty have left. Their pitching evaluation has been great.
Right.
Selecting minor league rookie pitchers and everything that have come up. I think their evaluation there has been fabulous. But I think they've really missed the boat on everyday players. And I just want to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely make that case. And again, I think a good way of looking at it, Myron, is the outfield situation where they said, no, we'll get rid of Arozarena and we're going to lock in on Tyler O'Neill, for instance. And Tyler O'Neill was really bad last year. So they were wrong. They were wrong. But I will point out that, like, if you look at Tyler O'Neill's AAA statistics and Tyler O'Neill's AA statistics, they were more enticing than Randy Arozarena's. So from a production standpoint, from a stats standpoint, the Cardinals saw a lot to like out of Tyler O'Neill. So we're like, oh, well, that, okay. I mean, it makes sense. Like, if I had told you on the Zoom a year ago, all right, we got these two guys, Arozarena and O'Neill. Here are the stats of one. Here are the stats of the other. A lot of us would have been like, well, trade Arozarena, keep O'Neill. Now, of course, a year later, we're like, why did they trade Arozarena? They should have traded O'Neill.
But a couple of years ago, when they brought up Arozarena, like O'Neill and Bader and Lane Thomas, they kept him on the bench. They didn't even play him.
Right.
Maybe 1 or 2, 3 at bats at the most. And they didn't even play him to see how he would do in the major leagues.
That's an interesting aspect to it. And a lot of that is the communication between Mike Schilt, the manager, and John Mozeliak and Michael Gersh, the general managers, the front office. I mean, Mike Schilt has the ultimate power to make the lineup card. And he, as we saw, he had Arozarena on the team in 2019. And he knew the minor league stats, and he'd seen him in batting practice and all that. He knew the guy. And Mike Schilt was more comfortable with going with different outfielders in that scenario because he wanted to win right now, and he definitely didn't want to gamble on Arozarena, and he didn't. And if we're talking about developing, he's like the minor leagues are for developing, the major leagues are for winning. And what did Mike Schilt do in 2019? He had his team in the Final Four of baseball. They're in the Final Four of baseball. They're 4 wins away from being in the World Series. My goodness, they lost to the Max Scherzer and the Washington Nationals in the NLCS. But yeah, I mean, but back to the talent evaluation aspect of, yeah, they're not batting 1,000, if you will, to use a clumsy baseball pun reference. They're not batting 1,000 on their talent evaluation when it comes to hitters, but they're really exceeding it with the pitchers. So exactly. Where does it, you know what I mean? So where does it mash up? So I don't know. Again, they made the playoffs the last 2 years. They have a lot of good young players coming back, but clearly you could argue that here's the top of baseball. The Cardinals are here. They're close to it, but they're not here. For many years, they were here, but now they're here. So how do you get back here? And that's why someone like Sanford suggests making a move like replacing the general manager. That's why we talk about replacing Matt Carpenter. What's it going to take to get from good to great? And it might just be the guy that built the team. John Mozeliak is the one that goes. But then it comes back to, will his owner, DeWitt, who adores him, be the one that says, you're making the playoffs every year, you're fired. So round and round we go.
I said Gritchick before, but I meant Gritch. The supposed Gersh. Is that his name? Yeah. What does he do all day?
So it's kind
I can't even remember his name.
Right.
He's been waiting for your telephone call.
Yeah. Let's call him now. Let's get him doing something. Let's get him on the phone. No, I mean, so real quick, Gersh has the title of general manager. Mozeliak has the title of president of baseball operations. When we were growing up, I always say, when we were growing up, the general manager was the name of the job of the boss guy. Even I was kind of throwing it out there in vernacular there. These days, president of baseball operations is the main dude, or as we saw with the Miami Marlins, main woman. They hired a woman, which was awesome. Kim Eng, the first woman to run a baseball team. So that the president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak, he's the boss of baseball. Michael Gersh, who has the title of general manager, is the number 2, if you will. What does he do all day? He talks to agents. He analyzes statistics on his computer. I mean, he's part of the front office culture, but they're not going to trot him out in front of the media too often because that's Mo Zaylock's job as the president of baseball operations.
Thank you.
Hey, Norman.
Norman, do you?
Hi. Hi, Ben, a fellow Greyhound, and I see a classmate of mine here with us today also. Got two questions. Recently, I saw one of the college football teams had a field goal kicker who was a woman. Any chance of ever seeing a woman in professional baseball, even at the minor league level? It would do great for attendance.
Great question. Do you want to ask your second question?
Yeah, the second question is, when are we going to see Channel 5 again?
Wait, what do you mean by Channel 5?
Well, apparently you don't watch television.
What happened?
They're in a
DirecTV
dispute
didn't
for
get,
the last 3 days.
They're negotiating with Channel 5, so Channel 5 is off the air on DirecTV.
You've been Frank Cusimano-less for 3 days?
Exactly.
Oh, I'm so sorry. How can you go 3 days without Cusimano? Yeah. Anyway, gosh, I have such a bad memory. What was the first thing again?
A lady in baseball.
Yes. That's a
Will
great
we
question.
ever see a lady?
I hope so. I really hope so. We're definitely seeing it in every other aspect of baseball. There's now a coach on the San Francisco Giants that's a woman. I just mentioned Kim Ng, the president of baseball operations, general manager, the boss of the Miami Marlins. The St. Louis Cardinals have Emily Wiebe. She's in their front office. She works with Michael Gersh or Gritch, we'll call him whatever, Michael, with the general manager and the front office folks. There are numerous women in baseball front offices, clearly not enough. But the idea is doors are now opening and we keep, I mean, it almost sounds like, I was gonna say almost sounds cliche, but I keep seeing stories on Facebook and Twitter, like little girls asking their parents about these women. Oh, can I do that job? And that's the whole point. It's like, if you see someone doing the job that looks like you, that inspires you, then it makes you want to try to do the job too. So hopefully we'll have many more women involved in baseball in every aspect, broadcasting, things like that as well. As for playing the game, I don't know. There was a very fascinating TV show on Fox recently, a couple years ago, and the show was called Pitch. And the same man that created This Is Us on Channel 5, on NBC, he created this show called Pitch, and he tried to make it as realistic as possible. So he was like, how can I do this to have realistically a woman play in the major leagues? And he developed a character who was a pitcher, and she couldn't throw 100 miles per hour, but she had a lot of clever stuff, a lot of crafty pitches, and she was smart enough and dogged enough in this storyline to make it to the major leagues. It was pretty cool. Could that happen? I don't see why not. I don't know. But I'm not here to say yes or no, but I'm definitely here to say I hope sure as heck that women try to become Major League Baseball players. I hope they try to do everything they possibly can. And real quick, I want to remind you, if you enjoyed this at all, or even if you didn't enjoy it, you're going to enjoy the next one. Thursday, December 10th, my man Howard Megdal is going to be available here. 2 p.m. Thursday, December 10th. Again, his name is Howard Megdal. He's written a book about the St. Louis Cardinals, and he is an expert. Nice segue here. He's an expert on women's sports, and he writes for ESPN, the New York Times. He's a very fascinating dude. So I highly recommend you hopping onto this. You got to sign up. Don't forget to sign up. Thursday, December 10th, 2 p.m. Howard Megdal talking sports here to you.
Great, thank you so much, Ben. I think we've gotten all the questions answered for today.
I have one more comment here, if you can. It's
Sure.
Sandy Wax. I hope you would give Wilma Gerstein a recommendation for general manager if we would like to, if we need a woman in the front office. She knows all of her baseball.
We'll
And I
take
actually
her.
do have one more question. How can basketball give LeBron James an $84 million two-year contract, $42 million a year, when it's such a small sport compared to baseball? We can't afford this, and yet basketball can give a guy $42 million a year.
Yeah. Well, real quick, I mean, there are fewer players on a basketball team, so let's say I'm doing this quick in my head, but let's say you have $200 million to pay all your baseball players and $200 million to pay all your basketball players. Well, there's only 12 basketball players. There's 25 baseball players. So you have more money per player. And the team, and they generate a bunch of money in the NBA. So I hate to say that's just kind of a standard contract now for superstars, but yeah, 40 million. I saw that too just today. Think about that. They play 82 games. He's basically getting $500,000 per game.
And basketball can generate that much money and baseball doesn't?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that I think they make comparable amounts, but the salaries for the players in baseball are less because there's more players.
Well, right. But I mean, just the general revenue of a basketball team is that much compared to a baseball team that they generate that much.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the national broadcast and they're doing well. Basketball teams are worth literally $1 billion these days, which it's pretty astounding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. And
Thanks,
if anybody
Jen.
has any more questions, just stop by the house.
Thank you so much. We enjoyed your talk today. And Myron, do you have anything else that you needed to add?
No, I just want to thank Ben for coming on again. You've been great. You've been great to the Jewish community, and can't wait to see you again. I'd love to see you in person again pretty soon.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Well, thank you everybody for the kind words. Stay safe. Don't get don't gamble on baseball, and don't get gambling with your health either. Be as safe as possible out there. It's crazy times.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
That was